How's it going? Welcome back to the channel. In this video, showing you how to correct the issue if your dots line up and actually run together. Sometimes you have to do fill pieces and head seams in it to make your fill piece actually long enough, and you can get 95% of your seam correct, and all of a sudden the last fill piece that you put on is going to be a little bit off, and all of your seam except for the last few feet of the seam is going to run together like that. Rather than busting the whole seam apart and redoing it all, I'm going to show you how to correct just the last few feet of your seam to where it is not run together and blends in perfectly like the rest of your seam. Stick around. Yeah, without busting the whole seam apart, we're going to address just the bad part of this seam. So I want to take a tape measure and I'm going to measure how far back the bad spot is. Actually, I don't even have to, because right here we got a head seam. So we're going to fold this back, and I want to get this nice and flat all the way back here to my head seam, because I know this is where the problem started. So I'm going to pull the tape off all the way to my head seam. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I got my iron turned up almost all the way. I'm going to go ahead and kick it all the way up on high, the highest it will get, so it will be extremely hot here. What I want to do is I'm going to run my iron over the back of this tape and remove it all the way down to my head seam. This will actually come off pretty good. You don't have to worry about scorching it too much, because you don't want to damage the back of the carpet. So after it sits there for just a second, go ahead and slide it forward, and see that right there, it's already starting to come off pretty good. I'll get you a good look at that here in just a second. Again, you're just warming it up to get the tape off, okay? You're not making a seam or anything like that. So keep it as cool as possible as you can while doing this. Again, you don't want to damage the carpet or anything like that. Again, just enough melt to make it come right off of there, but you definitely want to make sure that you do get it hot enough so that you don't cause damage. If you don't get it hot enough, you're going to pull pieces and fibers of your carpet out, which will cause more issues than you want to deal with, I assure you. If you've seen what I did there, just with my knife, I actually seen a piece of the carpet backing coming with it, so I stopped what I was doing and cut that off so it didn't continue to pull and cause a problem with the seam. Now it got a little cool there, so I had to stop, let it heat up, and I can carry on. And it don't take too awful long to do this. Good. You can see I got a nice, steady, consistent pull with this, so don't take too awful long. And once I get to my head seam, I'm going to pull it off, remove my iron, and yeah, I need a little. Okay, got to get it a little bit warmer right there. Perfect. Okay, so again, we're just going to our head seam, which is right there. Alright, so I'm going to cut my tape off right there. Don't need it to go any further than that. Now we're able to correct the problem and put it back together. Okay, so I'm fixing to correct it now. I want to definitely have a brand new sharp blade in this. I give this just a minute. I didn't want to try to mess with it by no means when the glue was still gummy and tacky and stuff like that. Give it plenty of time. Pull it apart like that so it's not sticking together still, because you don't want that. I give it plenty of time, like I said. It's still just a touch warm, but the tape, the glue on it is by no means sticky whatsoever. So this is it right here. This is how we're going to fix it. Okay, so as you can see, the little squares here in the backing of the carpet that run this way, and also lines run this way. So these are actually the rows of the carpet that the carpet is made in. And what's happened here, we have offset our pattern so that the two dots actually lined up like so. We want to offset them so that they line back up like that. In order to do that, we have to take off one row of the carpet here, and then our next row that joins to it is going to be perfectly offset so that it will fit together perfectly, okay? So what we're going to do here is remove one row of carpet, and that's why it's very important to have a super sharp blade. So these little shiny lines right here of nylon, that is actually right dead on the bottom of the fibers that you're cutting. So what you want to do is actually cut in between those lines right there, and that's going to be cutting right between a row. If you cut right on one, you're actually going to be cutting the part of the backing that the fiber is tucked down and looped into, which you do not want, because then you're going to split the fiber. You don't want that. You want to cut right in between. That is going to be the row in the carpet. So that's what I'm going to do. Right here on my piece of carpet, I'm going to find right in between the rows, and I'm just going to make my cut. I want to take off one single row, and that's all I want to take off. Don't get in a hurry doing this. Just take your time, ease it right on down through there. I'm going to exit this, and I'll show you exactly one single row that I'm taking off. It actually helps out that you have the old seam glue on here, because it kind of holds all this stuff together so that you're not fraying the carpet. It gives the carpet some stability. Now you see here, this is exactly what we want. This is one row of fibers, okay? We want to take that out all the way down through there, okay? So that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to cut this out all the way down to the end. When the two pieces go back together, it's going to be perfect. Okay, so again, I'm just cutting off the one single row right there. And I tell you what, having that bead of glue on the back of here from the seam tape sure makes a difference. Keeps this from falling all apart on you. I mean, it would be hard to cut off a single row like that if the backing of the carpet wasn't reinforced. Again, you don't want to get in a hurry because you're correcting. So anytime you're correcting, you always want to take your time, make sure everything goes as it should, so you're not correcting again. All right, so what was left of that is a little bit of the nylon that's made into the backing of this. I'm going to take my duck bills right here and just trim all those extra pieces of nylon off the edge of this seam so that I don't have anything getting in the way of making this seam look absolutely beautiful whenever I get done. It only takes a second to do these little steps. Typically that wouldn't actually affect anything or be in the way. I just like to have a nice clean workspace that I'm dealing with here, whether it be trimming off a few extra little pieces of fibers or whatever, just to make it nice and clean. It's going to definitely make stuff easier to work with and everything. Okay. Alrighty. Now, once again, so since we've done that, we've got a gap here the size of one row. It's going to cause just a little bit of a pucker here when we first take off making our seam, but after we stretch it, that's definitely not going to be an issue. It will come out when you power stretch it, because we always power stretch our rooms of carpet because it's mandatory and you get the best results using a power stretcher. Definitely don't want to forget this before you put your seam back together. Take just a second and seal up these edges again, because we've already heated and reheated this edge, so it definitely needs to be cured again, and it only takes a second to do it, so really ain't no reason why you shouldn't, okay? This is it's like a guarantee on your seam, okay? Not going to have any pieces falling out of it or anything like that if you do this. Some guys choose latex. I choose hot melt, just my preference. Either or is good. If you are going to use latex, get yourself a premium latex instead of a lot of that stuff that you get at box stores is actually more acrylic, and it's not even a latex. So read and see what your stuff is made of and get latex, okay? We're going to start off here, and we're going to put our tape. We don't want to overlap our tape with the existing tape here, so we're going to start it just like it should, butted right up next to that tape. I don't know if you noticed or not, whenever I did cut that off, I cut it fairly straight because I don't want this to overlap. 2 thicknesses of tape underneath of that. If the light source comes across it, you are going to have a visual hump in your floor. So don't overlap your seam tape, guys. So what I will do is, after I get my iron in there, I'll actually get it set, and you can see I'm still this far away, about 2 inches from my other seam. I'll set my iron here, and then once it gets hot, I'll pick up and slide my tape back where it needs to go, and then I'll slide my iron forward. This is another thing, if you guys don't have a seamer down now, one of the best investments that has entered the carpet business in a long time. This right here is worth its weight in gold whenever you're making seams. Like I said a while ago, this is going to have a little hump right here because I'm pulling it in the width of one row, and it is completely together here. So all of a sudden in the middle of the seam, I got to pull that in, and it's going to cause a hump. With this seamer down now, that's not going to be an issue at all. It's going to suck that down nice and flat, and it's going to be stuck because I got to pull it in so much. This is going to make that seam stick really good right there instead of trying to pull apart from the hot glue. So as I stated, I'll get it a little warm, slide my tape back where it needs to be, and then I will push my iron forward. Okay, I'm going to go 1 iron's length, 3/4 of an iron's length, whichever your preference. And close that seam up. See the hump right there? That's exactly what I was talking about. But that's going to be okay because we have the seamer down now. Alrighty, so as you can see, we took care of everything. There is no longer any more dots lining up. We have a beautiful seam. You can't tell that anything has took place here whatsoever outside of the original beautiful seam. So if you follow the steps that we mentioned right here in this video, you're going to have beautiful success yourself just like this. Absolutely perfect, okay? Thank you guys for tuning in. Until next time, FBSB's out.